Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very difficult session to moderate. I know it just happens after lunch, but just to make sure that we're not alone in this room and that we can start, can I say it one more time? Good afternoon. Now that sounds a whole lot better and more encouraging for our esteemed panelists. So, we want to thank you for taking time to join us on this particular panel, where we will be discussing a very key topic, which is around cyber resilience. And I'm sure you're very keen to hear what our panelists have to say about this. I'll probably want to just request that we can play the kickoff video as we start off this panel, and then I can introduce my panelists.
The sheer scale of the challenge of cybercrime is far greater than anybody ever imagined before.
People are using their mobile phones to make transactions. People are on the web buying things more often than they ever were before.
93% of all money is digital. So that's what's at risk.
It's difficult because as technology increases on our side, technology increases on the bad guy side as well.
I don't have to go out and break into an ATM. I can do this from behind a computer. So what we're seeing is this great increase in terms of transnational crime online.
The answer to this problem is ultimately not simply a public one. It is a public-private partnership, and Microsoft is at the core of that solution.
Microsoft is game changer in terms of the fight against cybercrime.
It's vital that we have a set of relationships where people can come in and work together and not work at the speed of government or even at the speed of business, but at the speed of cyber.
Now we're able to go on the offensive in a completely legal way using civil litigation action with Microsoft resources.
We're able to work with Microsoft to make really lasting, impactful change by taking down things on a much larger scale.
So what we will see, hopefully, is that we will see more takedowns in coordination where Microsoft has the muscles and insight. We will follow up. So we will not just take them down, we will actually also utilize the knowledge to see if we can catch the perpetrators.
If we try to build the present in the image of the past, we would miss out entirely on the challenge of the future.
Because of companies like Microsoft and the Digital Crimes Unit, more is being done today than has ever been done in history. The work they're doing is really heroic, and I believe it represents enormous hope for the future.
Our goal is to take new steps forward to really ensure that it's a lot harder in the future for cybercrime to pay off.
Thank you. So this was not a pitch for Microsoft, but I guess the point that we're trying to make, and also by sponsoring this particular session, was really the importance of the conversation that we're just about to have, which is about cybersecurity and building cyber resilience. And the point to make, if you look at all the discussions that we've had over the last 2 days, is really about the immense opportunities that the digital transformation brings. I mean, there's really so much that we can gain, citizens can gain, and businesses can be transformed, and governments as well, in how they serve citizens as part of the digital transformation. At the same time, we are aware that the risks continue to multiply. Cybercrime, as it was known before, was purely about notoriety, just to show you that I can get into your system. Somebody will hack you. But we have seen it move away from just being simple notoriety to actually crime or sophisticated crime. And that obviously means that the discussions around cyber resilience have to go a notch higher. It's estimated today that it can take up to approximately 343 days. That's the longest that a cyber criminal has been within an environment or in an organization without having been detected. That's almost, pretty much a whole year. And it's also estimated, and there's a lot of statistics which I'm sure our esteemed panelists will speak about. Only about 30% of organizations, and when we talk about organizations, we're obviously talking about not just governments but also enterprises, are actually able to detect breaches on their own. So how do we manage, or how can we build capacity in order to actually deal with cyber criminal? McKinsey report states that over the next 5 to 7 years, losses are expected to increase from 9 to 21 trillion of economic value, depending on the robustness of the security environment. In other words, all the gains that are being made by digital transformation will be lost if we do not sit down to address the issue of cyber security and how do we build cyber resilience. So this afternoon, I'm really privileged to be joined by an esteemed team of panelists who are well-renowned on this particular topic. And I'm hoping that we can engage them in some thoughtful discussions and also have some interactions in form of question and answers. And if you allow me, I will now just very quickly ask or introduce each one of them before I give them an opportunity to just share a few of their thoughts on this particular topic. So on my immediate left, I have Charles Mugisha. Charles Mugisha is a security manager or cybersecurity manager with the RDB, Rwanda Development Bank. He has experience of 9 years in the field of information technology with specialization in information security. He worked in Rwanda information technology as a network engineer specialist, where he was mainly in charge of establishing network infrastructure in government institutions. And he later joined the RDB as head of network security unit and is currently serving as the cybersecurity division manager, under which he is managing the Rwanda Computer Security and Incident Response Center. Welcome, Charles. Next to him is Enlin Nevelin. Enlin is the lead cybersecurity expert for Intel Security. He has been working in information technology for the past 17 years and has solid experience and background at both operational and strategic levels of various industries, which include telecommunications, retail, managed service providers, system integrators, as well as financial institutions. He's been with Intel Security since 2014 and is currently, as I mentioned, the lead cybersecurity expert in sub-Saharan Africa. Next to him is a gentleman who we've agreed that I can shorten his name to Bala for challenges that most of you will understand. So Bala Rajagopal is a managing director of GNext Technology Solutions. And he's got also a wealth of experience, 19 years of experience in the IT industry, in the area of system admin, network admin, and database admin. And he also has project management experience and information security consultancy has been one of his key drivers within the region. We just talked earlier that he's done quite a bit of work within East Africa, so I'm sure he'll have quite a bit that he can share of his experience on the particular topic that we have today. Last but most definitely not least is Dr. Hans-Christoph Krell. He is a Senior Vice President of BlackBerry and the Managing Director of SecuSmart. He is an internationally experienced professional who has had length of experience as a Director of Corporate Strategy at Nokia and has also worked there as Sales Director and Sales Development Director. He also has some additional experience, international experience as a Business Development Manager in the field International M&A at the Deutsche Telekom, as well as Assistant to the President of the Deutsche Telekom in France. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we definitely do have quite an esteemed panel here. And without taking more time, I probably want to ask, and let's probably start from the far end, and then come to government, which is not normal. Normally you start by listening to what the government position is, but we'll be a bit extraordinary. And I will ask Dr. Hans-Christoph to just take a few minutes. You have about 8 minutes each of you to just make your opening remarks, and then we can drive on the conversation.
Thank you, Angela. So my name is Hans-Christoph Quelle, and thank you. So yesterday we heard that this digital transformation, it was called digital tsunami. And I think a lot of this digital transformation, a digital tsunami, comes via the mobile internet. In fact, but a lot of this internet growth, which we see currently, is driven by the uptake of mobile internet. So securing the internet or securing the digital space is much about securing the mobile internet. And here we have a lot of challenges. Some are the same challenges as we have in network security or in PC security or in data security, but there are some special issues we face. Two of them are, I think, the most important. The first is the mobile is a private item. So this means that as soon as security will need changes of your behavior, because it's a private item, you will not accept this. People just don't accept if you mess around with their private items. If you mess around with things, they have 24 hours with them. So security in the mobile device or in the mobile device means really end-user friendly security, much more important than what we see in data centers or wherever. And the other is the battery. The problem with the battery is that mobile devices get more and more efficient on battery. And manufacturers will shut off every application which consumes battery. So if you have a security application which consumes battery, be sure it will be cut off, because battery is so crucial. So those are two things which are really special to this mobile device security. So this is the first thing. The other thing I think which is important to address is at least what we see inside BlackBerry or Secu Smart, that there are three different levels of security each and everywhere. The one thing is our governments. We call this governmental grade security. There are evaluation bodies to address these very high security. Then we have the enterprise security, and then we have the private consumers. And I think mobile security, there are a lot of companies which address the enterprise security or the governmental security, but nearly nobody addresses the private devices, the private consumer devices. And this is where this digital transformation is really huge. So in order to secure the mobile space, we need also to secure the private devices. And we need to secure them without the end user, without that the end user needs to do something. And that is really, really, really very, very difficult.
Thank you. Bala, do you want to take on from there?
Over the presentation.
Have the presentation from GNext?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bala Murugan Rajagopal. As moderator said, you can call me Bala. Everybody is calling me. Every time, whenever I introduce, I have to start with that. Now it has become a part of my life. It's good. I'm welcome everybody, and I'm thanking you for the opportunity. Challenges. So, am I audible? Today's agenda is introduction about cyber resilience and its multi-dimensional challenge. Finally, we are going to look at the need of hour, and any question and everything, you can take it up afterwards. Cyber resilience definition is as the ability of system and organization to withstand cyber events measured by the combination of mean time failure and mean time recovery. See, if we look at the resolution itself, change to okay. There was a different presentation. Okay, it came in a different. Okay, sorry. Quickly, we can go to that multi-dimensional challenge. What we look at, it is a cyber war and activism, terrorism, and corporate espionage and criminal activities. If we look at cyber war, it's so let me explain the things, then we can change it. Cyber war, it is a war, it's a network internet war, it's again wages against nation by nation, and try to disturb each other's. That is called cyber war. And activism is some kind of characteristics to poke into somebody's systems unnecessarily or with some intents, malicious intents. Terrorism is various reasons to achieve their political and financial agenda. Corporate espionage is another threat. The threat itself, you can say that it's a commercial threat. Each other try to do corporate espionage and fight each other, and competitive intelligence and everything they look at and see how they are doing it. And the criminal activities, yes, of course, it takes a lot of things is there, from child pornography and a lot of phishing attack, spam attack, a lot of things is there. This is what multi-dimensional challenges, what I am looking for it. And apart from this, totally if you look at the agenda of this time, it talks about digital currencies, that is cryptocurrencies, as well as child pornography. So digital currency is not even legal tender for any country, and it is very volatile, and it has a lot of other impact. It's very fast, and there is no, it also has anonymity. This anonymity also gives a lot of threat to the country economical challenges. On the other hand, cryptocurrency also has a good part of it. Converting from the digital currency to the legal currency, it's going to be difficult. So there is some part of security over there. And let us look at the need of the hour to take care of the resolution of the cyber. So we need to have a comprehensive policy and regulation to control the things. And as the things, if you look at, every time you talk about internet or computers, everything, it's about risk. So we need to have a comprehensive risk assessment framework, and regularly you have to do the risk assessment and try to put the control based on the things. And very important part of this one is information sharing. The information sharing is very, very important, because one organization or one country or individual can face a lot of threats or a lot of things they come across. If we share each other what is happening across the country or within our corporate, so that we can actively thwart the threats, whatever happening in the internet. And one more thing is how to overcome the things is coordinated action by private and government, it's like a CSRT and private organization, work together to come out of the problem and make it, internet is a very, very big success. And as well as we have to look at the continuous security awareness. The security awareness among the users or the parents or everything is very, very important. So there is a need of hour that I'm completing.
Good. Shall we?
Hi everyone, my name is Edwin Neveling. I'm a cybersecurity specialist for Intel Security. So to give you some background as to some of the challenges that we're seeing within our region and globally, for example, you currently today have a lot of options as a consumer of security technologies. There's about 200 plus security vendors out there, which is not a bad thing. It is essentially, it gives the consumer options, whether you're in public or private sector, and this is good. The challenge that we're seeing in that space is that every option creates complexity. There's little at this point in time that integrates all of these respective security technologies into a standardized communication fabric that essentially allows them to coherently and actively share information between each other so that they can adapt their respective security postures. This, over and above, if you look at most defense in-depth models, it is the acquisition of multiple technologies. So the average customer today essentially works with 12 to 15 different security vendors. This complexity is compounded by a skills gap that we have in the market today. IEC2 did a recent study where the median age of the average security practitioner is 42 years old, which means security practitioners in our industry is getting older, and there's not enough influx of skills into our respective sector of the industry. This is a major challenge we need to address. So there's a couple of things we're doing, and you know, as some of you may know, Intel Security is formerly known as McAfee. McAfee was and still is today the world's largest dedicated security provider in the world. We've got a history of focus on security with a number of products recognized by Gartner as leaders within the respective quadrants. And on the flip side of the coin, you've got Intel that finalized their acquisition of McAfee in 2011. And Intel has a history of defining architecture. So if you think what is needed, towards the next step in security is to really establish a collaborative, adaptive security platform where security technologies, irrespective where they sit within the ecosystem or the architecture, can essentially share technologies or information with each other and threat intelligence, and essentially all of them automatically within milliseconds can adapt their security posture. This adds and reduces the complexity in the architecture, because the integration model that we intend to use and that we are using today is a standardized model, which simplifies your incident response processes. It simplifies essentially the workload that your security operations centers, your security teams need to invest into incident response, which is a major challenge to address the skills gap. Over and above that, in order to establish resiliency, there is a major challenge in skill space at this point in time. That is, every single vendor out there, every customer that I'm dealing with is struggling to source key skills from a security perspective, mainly because of the complexity that we're seeing within our market. And if you look at it, a security professional today needs to be skilled on endpoint. He needs to know endpoint in all its different facets, whether it's a virtual server, a physical server, a mobile device, or a laptop. You need to know something about those devices to have context as to what you need to protect, and take that all the way to cloud technologies, software-defined networking, and the complexity associated with that. So the skills we need can largely be, to create skill in that space can be driven by governments, for example, to essentially establish the appropriate policy, the minimum security requirements for organizations. I believe that will fuel demand for security practitioners, and it will create jobs, and it will also create a culture of security. Over and above that, I believe we should do more. A lot of this conference has been focused on putting tablets and computing devices in the hands of our children. But we are not thinking about the consequences that could potentially have. Yes, it's a great opportunity, and the fact that they can learn from it is extremely important. But we need to also, at the same time, while we're doing that, educate them on the appropriate use, from a cyber ethics perspective, how to protect those devices and how to protect themselves against cyberbullying, theft of those devices, and also, the threats that are out there from a cybercrime perspective. We also need to educate their parents, because their parents has a responsibility to make sure that they essentially act and conduct themselves safe and securely online. Cyber resiliency is essentially twofold. There's a technology portion of things, but there's also a people aspect, and the people aspect is extremely important from a skills perspective. Without skills and with people that are actually competent within this area, we will not be able to address the problems that we see going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. And over to you, Charles.
Thank you, Moderator. I'd like to give a brief summary on how an enterprise or a country can be cyber resilient. Based on my experience, if an enterprise or a country want to be a cyber resilient, there is three fundamental domains. The domain number one, which I call governance or administrative information security control. An enterprise or a country should have a set of administrative information security control to make sure that infrastructure and people and information assets are all protected against cyber threat. So when I say administrative control, that's what my colleagues said. An enterprise or a country should have comprehensive security policies and standards and procedures to make sure that everything is processed in a secure way. Today, most of the incidents, they come in different angles. Some of the threat comes internal, and most of the reports say that internal threat, they are more than 75%. So To protect internal information assets, an enterprise should have a clear information security policies which define what people or what users should do and what they should not do. And if they have right to access a specific information asset, how they should access it. Another point is in the administrative control, an enterprise or a country should have a clear governance or a clear structure on how information security management is conducted. And to do that, an enterprise should have a sort of a team which focus on protecting an enterprise information asset. And it can go up to a higher at the level of a country. A country also should have a means of a national coordination at the national level to make sure that most of the information security initiatives are defined and implemented, and also the compliance of it is enforced. Also, users, as my colleague said, users should have appropriate information security awareness or cybersecurity awareness. Based on my experience, once users are aware about cyber threat and the techniques of criminals, it's one of the major defense. Assume if I'm a user and I know the techniques of how people can target my system, how people can access my system, I also learn how I can protect myself. And also employees, most of them, they're the ones who have access to different information systems containing user data. So once all those users with privilege to access enterprise information asset, once they're aware about cyber threat and how they can protect themselves, actually for me, it's a very big defense, even more than having technology in place to protect against cyber threat. So those are some key highlights of cyber resilient, which are in the administrative control. The second domain, an organization to be self-resilient should have some technical controls. On top of the administrative, an enterprise should have technical controls. And when I say technical controls, it includes technology. Technology can have, we can have a means to protect our information asset by using technologies. For example, like as he said, there are different technology which you can deploy within an ICT infrastructure to make sure that they protect cyber threat at different levels, and even up to the end devices, which user use to access the devices. So among the technology control, an enterprise should clearly define the parameters on how to protect cyber threat at different layers. So in the technology, there are many technology out of there which people can adapt to be cyber resilient, but having technology itself is not enough. That's why I said in the previous domain, an enterprise should have people who operate and manage carefully those devices, because a device, there are misconceptions that if someone have a technology to protect against cyber threat, then people should keep quiet. So you should have technology, and on top of that technology, have someone who operate and maintain that specific technology which protect the enterprise against cyber threat. The last one, it's a physical security controls. Currently, we have very big data centers in different government organizations or in different private enterprise, but you will find that some organizations, they don't care with physical security. So in today's cyber attacks, they are getting more and more sophisticated. If a criminal knows that this specific organization have a set of technological controls, he can bypass and go physically and take a hardware which contain critical information. So that's why to be cyber resilient, it's a combination of different cybersecurity controls, from administrative, technology, up to the physical control. Maybe if I can give an example, there is a case where different organizations found that critical information assets like servers and the database servers, they are just kept in an office, right? So if someone comes straight in the office and unplug a hard disk which contains the data and the database, actually for me, it's more than hacking. So someone just take a data easily and go with it. Or someone can just cross in the office, target a laptop for a senior executive, just take it and go back. That is more than hacking. So that's why when we talk about to be cyber resilient, we need to look the protection of critical infrastructure from different perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for those remarks. Charles, you've given us a very good insight into what is known as an industry best practice in as far as dealing with cybersecurity, which is defense in depth. Right from physical controls down to encrypting data and also managing or maintaining the applications as well. I'd like to just challenge, the panelists here with a few questions, and then, of course, obviously, we'll open up to the panel. And I'll start now in the reverse order with my good friend here, Charles, who represents some form of government. And there's a typical question that many people want to ask. I mean, we're all very clear of the fact that a nation must do what it has to do in order to protect or safeguard national security. But where would you say we draw the line between national security and access to information and privacy over citizen? So where do you draw the line between what the government must do in order to keep the environment safe? And as I double that question, I would want to challenge Dr. Hans Christoph, because a lot of the conversations that have been had so far and really a lot of discussions around cyber resilience, most of the time focus around data. But I'm very curious and interested to hear your perspectives, and maybe you can share what your experience has been with BlackBerry on what's being done in as far as securing voice is concerned. So maybe I could start with those two questions.
Thank you, the moderator. That's a tricky topic. In most of the forum, people say government should not do anything just for citizens to feel free and to feel secure. But others say that the government should do something. And I think I agree with the people who say that the government should do something. Because at the end, government should protect everyone in the country. So now to do so, the government, to make sure that people are safe, government should establish a clear legal and regulatory framework. The regulatory framework should define what enterprise should do to make sure that users or consumers of information services, they are protected. On top of the laws and the regulations, government should define a comprehensive information security standard or information cybersecurity standard. And those standards should not just be kept as a document, but should be enforced for compliance. Many countries like, for example, like Tunisia, it's just a case. They have a clear information security standard where either a private enterprise or a government enterprise should comply with. And at the end of the year, the government carry out an information security audit to make sure that every enterprise comply with government rules and regulations, and with the purpose to secure the privacy of the consumer of information services. So I think government have a very take into making sure that privacy of users is guaranteed. And on top of that, government also should build the capability. Government should build the capability not only to protect, because it is very difficult to say that an enterprise or a user will be 100% protected. Whatever case incident will happen. There is a theme in cybersecurity domain where they say, if a hacker wants to hack you, he will hack you and nothing you can do about it. So if someone targets to hack you, whatever case he can do so. But what you can do is just to make sure that you make his life harder to hack you, right? So government should build the capability to make sure that if it happens, there are massive of attacks or massive of incidents, either an enterprise have the capability to respond and recover from that incident. That's the core part. So enterprise themselves cannot build a national cybersecurity capability. So government should put effort in building national cybersecurity capability to make sure that any enterprise within the country or an individual who is in the country or even a massive attack targeting the whole national critical infrastructure, if it happens, then the country can respond to it.
Before I get to Hans, I'd just like to ask you an auxiliary question to that. So at what point, because cyber attacks are worldwide. I mean, you could be attacked from anywhere. There's no specific border in as far as where the attack would come. At what point, particularly for your case in Rwanda, where you are in charge of the National Incident Response Center, do you collaborate with other agencies and other countries in order to address the whole conversation around cyber resilience?
So now, in case of Rwanda, as part of our cybersecurity strategy, we have a program which we call international cooperation and collaboration. And on that's where we discuss and interact with other cybersecurity organizations. Because as you said, cybersecurity attacks can come everywhere. So we say that cyber attacks are borderless. So an attack can come from US, can come from China, can come from Asia. So the most important part is to know how you protect your asset. Wherever an attack comes from, you are protected. So now, within the country, the government is establishing a clear role and responsibility of information security within each and every organization, to make sure that in each organization, like us as the national CERT, who are in charge of responding to incident, we have a focal contact, a focal person. In case something happen related to cybersecurity, we have a point of contact who we can contact and support them to make sure that we respond to any incident.
Okay, thank you. Hans-Christoph?
Yeah, thank you very much. My personal mission about secure voice. Yeah, we are always speaking about cybersecurity, and this means securing data. But in fact, what we do is we secure only the written data. We secure our PowerPoints, we secure our emails, the Excel spreadsheets. But there are very few companies and very few governments securing the voice. The voice is also data. And if you feel that your written data should be protected, you should be equally concerned about your voice data. If I explain this always like this, that if you use Siri, the Apple product, then you see how easy it is today for algorithms, for computers to understand the spoken word, to understand the meaning of your sentences, the meaning of your discussions, the meaning of your debates. So, voice is currently completely clear. There is nearly no encrypted voice. And I think this is a huge lack. So, securing data does not mean I have to secure my network, I have to secure my data center, I have to secure my email system, but it means also you have to secure your voice communication. You have to secure your fixed voice communication, but also the mobile voice communication. And this is something which has not been addressed at all in the past. Currently, the good thing is that currently technologies evolve so that I think at least enterprise can secure their internal voice as they secure their internal data. Governments do this already. Governments all around the world do protect their voice. But enterprise, very rare, and private consumers, not at all.
Well, thank you for that elaboration. So just an additional question on that. So if an enterprise is interested in securing their voice, where do they go?
Thank you very much. So we as SecuSmart, what we as a small company, we had governmental voice secured. This was our pitch. But now, as in BlackBerry is securing the mobile enterprise space. So now there are products out there, but not only from BlackBerry, but for sure this is a very good one. But there are also other products. Basically, I think you need to secure your voice, and there are several vendors, as Enlin said, that there are a couple of hundred vendors. Maybe in secure voice there are not a couple of hundred vendors, but there are vendors. And I think there will be standards coming up so that it will be easier and easier to secure voice. But customers also need to want it. If they don't want it, if they just don't care about their voice, then for sure there will be no good products available.
Thank you. I'm going to ask two more questions to Enlin and Bala, and then I'll open up the floor for questions. And I'll start off with Enlin. And one of the things that's been key is the whole issue about analytics, and how do we aggregate, all these different statistics and different pockets of information that we are collecting in different organizations and government as well through various institutions and certs. How do we improve the capability around cyber forensics? Is there, an approach that we can take or Africa can take as a whole to collaborate on this? I'd like you to just maybe elaborate a little bit about that. And then Bala, the question is to you, is a huge focus, and I think we've talked a bit about that, has been around building infrastructure resilience. So what is it that, organizations or even governments need to do? Because always about securing, as we just talked about, defense in depth, what can I do around my perimeters? But, talking about a mobile-first, cloud-first world, which is basically where we are living, what can we do to be a bit more proactive? Or what can organizations do or governments do in order to be prepared to handle attacks or to be a bit more proactive around that? So if you could just answer those two questions, and then hopefully we can take some questions from the floor. Yes, please, Andy.
So essentially, if you look at a typical threat model, without getting too technical, there's three areas of intelligence that you could leverage, from as a cert, for example. There's strategic intelligence, and this is the phase where, you are completely unaware of what the attackers are doing. They are, however, planning, and they are essentially creating, or gathering information about your respective posture, from a IT infrastructure perspective, your how your environment's laid out, and they're even looking at what your people like and what they may not like, because it opens up an opportunity for targeted attacks against specific individuals. So that is something we refer to as strategic intelligence within a typical threat model. There's also tactical intelligence, and this is where the technology plays a part, where this is everything that is essentially happening right now. Everything that your firewalls are seeing, your endpoint security solutions are seeing, and that is essentially tactical intelligence. There's also a portion which we refer to as operational intelligence, that is after the fact, right? How accounts and permissions and identities are used within your organization, by which users, and essentially on which respective systems and their respective security levels. Now, the last two, essentially operational and tactical intelligence, is an area where you can actually implement technology and you can equip people to do something with it in your environment. A key point, though, from a government perspective, is that you establish focus groups. The financial industry, for example, has done this for a number of years, where they review cybercrime statistics, they review credit card fraud, they review all of these things, and they share this knowledge with each other, where they can then proactively go and essentially adapt and secure their respective processes. What we are seeing in the industry is that governments, for example, parastatals, critical infrastructure organizations, in the energy sector, in the transportation sector, are creating these focus groups, and they are starting to share threat intelligence with each other. And that threat intelligence could be, through regular meetings, but we're also starting to see them sharing indicators of compromise with each other, sticks. And this is essentially a catalog of how a threat or attack would essentially be compiled, and the different indicators of compromise within that attack can then be shared with different government, institutions, different countries, different sectors within the industry. So that is something that we're seeing is becoming a need, because a lot of the attacks, for example, are focused on a specific vertical. They could be focused on financial, they could be focused on energy sector, they could be focused on government, infrastructure specifically. So the need for those type of engagements and the need for threat intelligence sharing, within that space is important. Government, however, I think is in a very good position to establish the requirement for those respective focus groups across the different verticals. So yes, there's a bit of policy that needs to happen, but I think once that is in place, there's a lot of value that could be gained in collaborative threat intelligence sharing across the respective.
Thank you. Bala, would you just highlight a little bit?
First, we have to understand the resilience part. Cyber resilience, normally people may think that it's a redundancy. There is a difference between redundancy and resilience. Redundancy have multiple redundant component built in the network. So people think that I have a redundant component inbuilt, my network is secure, and it has a resilience. It is not so. Resilience is all about fine-tuning and configuring the system when the attack or incident occur, how fast it can come up, the mean time to recover. That makes the resilience of the network. So if you look at the private and government interaction, so they have to have information sharing. So through, as already I emphasize on my presentation, they can have a collaboration with the government and private through CSRT, and they can exchange information about what is happening, how it is solved by somebody, so what we can proactively work on build the cyber resilience. So if you look at most of the people, most of the country or most of the corporate, they look at us self-centric and they have fear of sharing the information. If I share the information, what will happen? So what will happen? They may think that I am a bad guy or I am a lethargic guy where I did not configure properly. Yes, it's not like, as our Charles pointed out, hackers decided to hack particular things. It can happen. So risk can be mitigated, it cannot be eliminated. So don't worry about sharing the information, because today you are saying that I have a problem of here, how we can avoid the total disaster among the within the country or within the, it will help even global factors also.
Thank you for that. So do we have a roving mic? Would like to open up for some questions from the audience. Do we have any questions? Yes, I can see a hand up here at the front, and then there's one right where you are. So maybe we could start off there.
Thank you. My name is Gasana Gerald Magellan, Elite Investment and Trade Corporation. I'm an ICT stakeholder. My comment or my question, how do you link the ordinary crimes and the criminals? How do you link it with cyber crime? For me, it's the same. It's linked.
Could you hold your mic up a little bit so we can hear you clearly?
Sorry. My comment, but it's also a kind of a question. How do you link cyber crime with ordinary crime, daily crime, or daily criminals? Or cyber crime, they are sophisticated criminals if we use technologies and educated people. You cannot be cybercrime without having knowledge, extraordinary knowledge.
Okay.
So how do you link it? For me, it's linked, but it depends how people can treat those criminals. And so thank you for that.
Well, I guess what you're dealing with here is now a virtual criminal, so, and I guess we can talk a little bit about that. You've got experts here who can share a little bit about what the linkages are, but it's a good question. We get your point, thank you. So there was a hand over here. And then we have, I think we'll take a third question from Mr. Ford.
Thank you very much. My name is Bouche. I am the Director of Infrastructure in the Common Market for East and Southern Africa. And I would like to say that we have a very strong program on cyber security. We did policies, regulations, and work with the countries because as reported, the crime can be originated from outside the countries. And we are working on cooperation agreements and we do some capacity building. My questions is on the capacity building and awareness. Most of the speakers they have not touched on that one. And the capacity building really is very crucial and costly, especially for the people, technically people at the CERT and so on. They have to be very well trained and they have to have simulations on attack and so on, as well as awareness for the normal people about the cyber crime. I know many countries like Zambia, they did awareness for the people in the villages and urban areas about the cyber crime. I want to hear about the case in Rwanda here. The other issue that the enforcement of laws and legislations in cyber crime and cyber security. In many African countries, they have the judiciary system is lagging behind. The technical people, the regulators, they deal with the technical issues, but the judiciary system is not really involved, and we are working with the Council of European Commerce and other legal organizations to bring in the judiciary system in East and Southern Africa on course. I want to see from Rwanda what really their involvement in the case of the judiciary system. I know in some commercial countries they have cyber police unit in Mauritius, in Kenya, and also they did some training for the judges, prosecutors, investigators in Egypt and other countries. Really, this is crucial because with the cyber crime, the time is critical. You have to get information as quickly as possible, and the extradition and sharing of information between member states is important. So for that, I really want to hear on those two questions, but I might come again if need.
Thank you very much. Those are very valuable questions. I will ask Charles to address the policy questions, and then I'll ask Endlin if you could kindly just comment a little bit about, where's the line between cybercrime and normal criminal behavior?
So I think it's when you differentiate between normal crime and cybercrime, it's essentially how the crime is committed, and the acts that led to the theft. So we're currently seeing cybercrime numbers that we're seeing, and funny enough, we only have numbers from 2 countries in Africa, and the confidence level on those numbers are extremely low. South Africa, for example, and Nigeria. So cybercrime currently, based on estimates, and because a lot of these numbers are based on low confidence, is essentially 0.8% of the global GDP. Now, cybercrime is in my view, how you differentiate between that is essentially, as I mentioned, how the crime is committed at the end of the day. And the UK, for example, they released numbers this week, 2.5 million incidents a year just on cybercrime. And these are people using computers either to steal money, to coax people into providing them with their personal information, which then could be used and sold, or to exploit their respective bank accounts. But it literally comes down to, how the crime is committed at the end of the day. And by what means, whether you're using technology or whether you're physically walking into a building.
So maybe I could just also maybe highlight or add a comment there and give a little bit of Microsoft's experience there. So the sophistication of the attack is basically what makes it to appear or to be magnified in terms of what its impact is across board. And and that's the reason why there is then need for collaboration across the world. So working with various agencies, whether they are or the police, or you're working with the FBI, or you're working with NSIS in our various countries, in order to collaborate on certain, to bring down these crimes, because you wouldn't know where it's coming from. And I can give you an example of pharmaceuticals. I mean, last year, Microsoft has taken down at least what we call botnets, 12 botnets. And one of those that we've taken down in collaboration with working with the FBI and also Interpol is actually to bring down pharmaceuticals. It's a net of criminals, and basically what they do is that they sell online drugs. Most of these are counterfeit drugs, so it's not an operation that is in one specific countries, and they prey on you. People buy, they'll pay for the drugs, and they'll say that they'll ship them in, but most of these drugs are counterfeit. And in an operation that was done 2 years ago, we've actually been able to bring down, jointly by working in this particular group, which is not just Microsoft, but really bringing together a whole group of national authorities and also the prosecution arm, because then you have to also be sure what to do with the syndicate. Have brought down 20,000 pharmacies, and you can imagine how much they have fleeced people all over the world. If again you look at child pornography, I don't know about how much of, most of you may be aware about what's happening in that particular space. It is one of the biggest forms of illicit business that's happening online. And it's amazing at how sophisticated some of these criminals have become, and the manipulation that happens around just simply putting your photograph or your child's photograph on Facebook or other social sites. And basically what they do is that they just disfigure the photo a little bit and then sell it off, so you find the child is being, sold in a different market. And so one of the things that I know, as Microsoft, we have done is collaborated with the universities and have actually come up with what we call photo DNA technology. And basically what we do is that we provide that particular kind of technology off to NGOs, those that are dealing with helping, to look for missing children, to help them identify and bring down some of these criminals around the world. So it's a sophistication and the nature of how the attacks are done, and basically the fact that they are borderless, so it could happen from anywhere, that makes it the effect of it just much, much, much worse than any, I would say, crime that is really domiciled within a specific country. And with that, maybe I can ask Charles to just talk a little bit about the policy side of things and where are we going in as far as making sure that our judicial arms are moving at the same pace as technology and infrastructure.
Yeah, I think his question was more on the legal part and the awareness and how the judiciary sector is involved in the cybersecurity issue. So starting by cybersecurity awareness, as you said, also in Rwanda, we developed a national cybersecurity awareness program. And that awareness program target different audiences. So as part of the audience, number one, we targeted everyone who is using internet facilities, either from home or either from his company. So we developed a comprehensive content for users who are accessing internet facilities. And as a part of the national CERT function, actually they are the ones who are responsible to implement those specific awareness programs. So as part of that program, we also targeted different categories, from users to managers, and also we went even to the regional awareness. Recently, this year, we had a regional cybersecurity incident and response workshop. We had almost 24 countries which participated. Actually, that workshop took place in this room. So that was a specific component which targeted IT cybersecurity professionals to make sure that at the national level and even at the regional level we cooperate to respond on cyber security threat. Now, what we did specifically in the national SAT, we conducted various cyber security awareness in different government organizations, in different private organizations, and also even specific people who are providing IT services, like the software developer. You know that currently most of the flaws and incidents, they result from the weaknesses within the system, which again impact the resiliency of ICT infrastructure against cybersecurity threats. So we have a program, and in that program, we targeted the different audiences, and each audience, each category, we developed a specific content to help them to understand what they should do and what they need to understand. Because based on the category of people, everyone needs to understand a specific message about cybersecurity issues. For example, like, you know, many people think that cybersecurity is a technical issue. But for us in Rwanda, we consider it as a strategic issue. So to make sure that senior leaders and managers of different enterprises, they are aware and they support cybersecurity initiative, we developed a specific content for the senior managers, what they should do to make sure that an enterprise or an organization is safe from cybersecurity threat. So on cybersecurity awareness, that's what we did. Regarding the judiciary sector in cybersecurity issues, in Rwanda, we have developed a couple of legal and regulatory framework on cybersecurity, and we did that with cooperation with the justice sector. Because on our side, we look at more on operation and the technology side, but as in many countries, the legal aspect always fall behind the technology. So we work hand in hand with the justice sector to make sure that our legal and regulatory framework are harmonized and in line with the current development in the ICT sector.
Thank you for that. I'll just ask Enlin to just talk a little bit about skills development, since that question was asked. If you could just highlight.
So skills development can happen in a number of ways, and there's ways we can collaborate. For example, online safety for kids. We've developed with Department of Homeland Security, National Security Agency in the United States, we've developed an online safety for kids program, focused at different levels. So ages 5 to 8, 8 to 11, and 11 to the late teens, for example. And this creates awareness, for example, around safe usage of cell phones, cyberbullying, for example, and also stuff like piracy, which is very important, which is also a criminal act, by the way. So that addresses the need for educational at school levels. And we as an organization, for example, we do it as a corporate social investment, but I think there's an opportunity there where we can take that content, and as we give children these laptops, we can actually educate them on the safe usage of those respective systems. So that is one initiative. Another recommendation that I would like to make, obviously for us as a vendor delivering services and technology into Africa, training is probably one of the hardest things, we have to do, mainly because of the cost of flights, the location that we're going to deliver these respective contents. And we've come up with various ways to address this requirement. Obviously, remote online training, for example, is one way we could address that requirement. This, however, does not address the need for classroom training where you want that interaction, for example. We're creating focus groups, for example, example, amongst our customers and respective, technology verticals. Another initiative also is to work very closely with the respective vendors. They've got content. We've got content that we can make available, which you can then repurpose into training programs for your respective, either your staff, your, school kids, and also within at government levels. That is an opportunity for us to collaborate and actually deliver something.
Okay, so I think we have time for about two more questions. So we'll take a question from Mr. Ford, and there's one here at the front. I think we'll take those two last questions.
Thank you very much, Moderator. My name is Robert Ford. I'm the CEO of Filmax Web Technologies, one of the oldest web technology companies in Rwanda. I'm also a coordinator of a regional alliance, technology alliance in the Northern Corridor. My question is, what kind of business models can we build around cybersecurity so that it's not a responsibility of just governments to set out policies and regulations, but cybersecurity can be seen as a business where frameworks of public-private partnership can help governments not just be involved all the time in trying to set policies, but businesses take that on and be able to reduce the pressure on government. That's one. Two, and this is to Hans, to someone from BlackBerry. It's common knowledge that some of the systems that we have come to live with in the smart technology era are actually not that prone to viruses. We know about the Apple products, where people say these ones are not very, very prone. We know about BlackBerry's SMTP and the POP feature that you have that makes BlackBerry one of the most secure systems when it comes to mail. Can we have faith that in the years to come, we could inhabit a cybercrime-free world by deploying what you deploy? And last but not least, who actually produces cybercrime? Some of the biggest conglomerates that we are seated with at that podium have been architects and engineers of the best crime minds that we have had, cybercrime minds that we have had. Because most of these criminals are hired by big conglomerates to be able to hack into systems so they can be able to see how they can build walls against the applications. Microsoft, for example, BlackBerry. The finest tech minds that I'm looking at right now have been the architects of the worst crimes we have had. And so it's like if you want to bring down the fire and you use another fire to break the fire. So how do you stand to give credibility to what you do by not supporting the criminal world? You've created it, and we are here discussing on how to break it. Thank you.
That's a difficult one for the moderator. So I'll take it last to conclude.
Hi, my name is Karan Veer Singh, and I'm from a company called ComLabs in India, and my question is also directed towards Hans. You mentioned a little bit about how insecure voice was, but I just wanted to state that from my understanding, the GSMA has done a lot of work. And if you look at 3G and the evolution into LTE, it is inherently secure, does not allow a man-in-the-middle attack. So it's very difficult to get in. But if you look at the whole smartphone arena, where you can secure your phone by putting in even encryption, and there are a lot of, like you said, a lot of different solutions. But where I see them fail, and I want to ask you if you have a solution for that, is that by putting in a malicious app, I can just record the content which is coming into the earphone and what's coming into the microphone, and then find a way of encrypting that and then using your internet connection to send that out. So that's, I think, probably the most dangerous thing which someone can have on the phone, and how do you protect against that?
Okay, I think Dr. Hans, there's some questions for you there. And I would also want to ask Bala to support you on the same.
Yeah, So one thing I think, how to say, there was many questions, but one simple answer is there will definitely always be cyber threats if there are threats in the real world. So the cyber world will never be more secure than the real world. And I think we as engineers all around the world, we can try to secure the modern technologies as fast as we can, but even more modern technologies will pop up and even more and faster. So there will never ever be a cybercrime-free world. I don't believe this. This is the first thing. The second thing now about voice. Yes, you are sure that GSM and 3G, the air interface is secured. Even this is not completely secure, but what happens after the base stations? The voice is transferred in the networks completely clear. So yes, maybe you cannot not so easily intercept the air interface between the base station and the phone, but what happens after the base station is completely unclear. And it belongs to the operator or to your company or to whomever, whether this is encrypted or not, and you cannot rely on this. So I think modern voice is not more secure than old voice technologies. Now, your question about viruses or malicious software being able to infect the phone in such a way that you record what the environment had, like a baby phone. Yes, for sure, this is a real threat. And now, as part of BlackBerry, in BlackBerry OS, there has not been yet any native application hacking the BlackBerry OS. But, as I said, so this is very good for BlackBerry and for the BB10 OS. The problem is that the market share of this OS, which is so hard that it's not hacked yet, is so small that if we speak about the overall threat of mobile internet, it's not important. The importance is we should be able to secure the operation system which is around everywhere, and this is currently Android. So we have 85% market share of Android, and you are completely right, it's very easy to build viruses which intercept the voice and then just compress it and send it as a normal internet stream somehow to some servers. You are right.
Hey, Paula, would you like a quick comment?
I want to add some more points to Dr. question of Mr. Karan. Actually, the technology itself of 4G, 3G, LTE, everything is secured. But the attacker is degrading, forcing the mobile handset to the 2G and GSM. So when it's coming to 2G and GSM, it's naturally, once again, it's vulnerable. That is what they're doing it. Unless otherwise we force the encryption A2 to A5, then it can be secured. But now voice inscription is one of the solutions available, but because of these small issues. So I think over the period, once GSM or 2G is obsolete, then we are going to use or forcing our handset to 3G or 4G, then you are correct. So the next question which is asked by another gentleman, the business model for the country, this one. Actually, last time we were discussing, me and our colleague Charles were discussing having a security forum and as well as certifying or approving the local security vendors to do testing on the government, this one. To approving itself, if you look at the Indian model, there is a body called CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team. They are into the forefront of approving the vendor. When they are approving the vendor, only the approved vendor can do all the testing or auditing or something else. So this CERT as a body, they are testing the technical ability, and once they are certified, yes, at least you are ensured once one particular level of standard of security is implemented. That is what this one. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, there's one more point here. Ford, I will take your question offline if you like. But I think the point that I would make, I think, is the whole conversation around cybersecurity it's an international issue. And as you've heard from the panelists here, there's really a lot of collaboration around it. It would be folly to say that you would create systems that you intend to break yourself. I think that would I think that would be an incorrect statement. But as Microsoft, of course, sit here as an employer, would have to speak, for that and say our commitments, to privacy and security of data of our customers goes unmatched. I mean, we try to keep that to the ethical standards as high as possible. Every year we receive at least 250 million hits to our systems of malware through hits coming into our system of attacks happening in different parts of the world. And we share that data publicly. It's not data that we keep to ourselves. We publish that information with the hope that it will help countries to actually begin to understand how to deal with the whole conversation around cybercrime. Of course, we are continuing to also use that particular intelligence that we get to build safeguards into our products. If you look at what we've done with Windows 10 and the safeguards around that, we improve our encryption based on that because the attacks continue to change in the sophistication and the nature of which they appear. So the commitment that we can give is the fact that we are committed towards a secure environment, secure internet. It's what our business model is built on. We have stood by that over years since Bill Gates started trustworthy computing. It is one of the major fundamentals of what makes Microsoft what it is. But it's not a war that we can win on our own. All the people here and those around this room are working tirelessly in order to address the whole conversation around cyber criminal activity. So,
question is again for Dr. Hans. You are now introducing an Android phone. BlackBerry is introducing an Android phone, and I've been looking forward to it. Is that going to be secure?
So I think to make your question is there different security across different platforms?
Correct. So he said that BlackBerry today does not have a large market share like Android.
Okay.
But BlackBerry today is now also moving to Android.
Right.
So they've just launched a new Android phone.
Correct.
So I was just asking him that have they been able to secure it? Because then we can all place orders. We can go back and have it.
That's a good question. We'll take one small point because we really must close this panel. Just make your point very brief so that we can ask each of the panelists as they close to respond to those issues as we bring this session to a close.
My point is that responding to one of the questions of the participants about the private sector involvement in cybersecurity, I think the private sector involvement is a must because the cost of the cybersecurity is very high and you need the private sector to invest in, especially want to come to the protection of the critical information infrastructure. And when we went with some of COMESA member states to Estonia, we have seen how the private sector is producing the ID, the national identity card, and involved in many security items in Estonia, and that's really reducing the cost on the government. So the private BBBs is there in the cybersecurity.
Okay, so very quickly, we'll move from Hans this way, and you can just give one last closing comment.
Yes, so I can answer this question. Yes, BlackBerry will have an Android phone, and no, it will be not more secure than all the other Android phones, but it will help BlackBerry to gain market share back.
Thank you.
Bala, would you like to give one last comment? You're good?
So I think if I can echo, the sentiments, it's if we're going to address the need for cyber resilience and establish cyber resilience, it's definitely going to be a joint effort between public and private sector. And I think the key role that public sector can play is the fact in the establishment of the appropriate policy, to actually drive the maturity we need in the public sector. That will naturally create opportunity, job opportunity, which will create that cyber resiliency capacity that we need to address, the future of security moving forward. So that is essentially it. It's always a joint effort. Collaboration is
Great. Charles?
Thank you.
as we said, cyber security is a global issue. But my remark to be a continent or a country which is resilient to cyber threat, I think the government should put more effort in research and development in the area of cyber security. Because at the end, all this technology we use, they are the weakest in the chain. So as we build the capability of our human resource and focus more on research and development, I think we can be more resilient, more and more resilient on cyber threat.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for our panelists. I think that has been a discussion that was worth your time. Thank you all. I just have one small announcement to make. There is a digital inclusion for women's empowerment keynote address by the First Lady of Rwanda, Mrs. Jeanette Kagame. This is happening at the Akagera Hall. So those who are interested, after this, please make your way to the Akagera Hall for that forum. And I want to thank you all for taking time to join us at this particular forum. Thank you.